The hangover hit me like a freight train the moment consciousness crept in. My head throbbed with each heartbeat, and my mouth felt like I'd spent the night chewing cotton soaked in cheap tequila. The silk against my skin felt wrong. Too smooth, too expensive. Nothing like the threadbare cotton sheets I'd collapsed onto after the festival's closing party. I kept my eyes closed, trying to piece together the fragments of last night through the fog of alcohol and exhaustion. The Latin Music Festival had been the highlight of Miami's cultural season. 3 days of salsa, bachata, and merengue that had left my feet bloody and my soul soaring. As one of the featured dancers, I'd performed 6 shows over the weekend, each one more demanding than the last. The closing party had been legendary. Champagne flowing like water, music that made rest impossible, and the kind of celebration that only dancers knew how to throw. But something was wrong. The air smelled different, not the familiar mix of my vanilla body spray and the ocean breeze that drifted through my apartment windows. This was something else entirely. Expensive cologne, leather, and the faint aroma of Cuban cigars. My stomach churned, and not just from the hangover. I forced my eyes open, squinting against the morning light filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows I didn't recognize. The room spun for a moment before settling into focus, and what I saw made my breath catch. This wasn't my cramped studio apartment in Little Havana. This was a penthouse suite that screamed money, marble floors, modern art on the walls, furniture that probably cost more than I made in a year. Panic clawed at my throat as I looked down at myself. A cream-colored silk nightgown clung to my body, definitely not mine. My dance costume from last night, the red sequined number I'd worn for the finale, was nowhere to be seen. My hands flew to my throat, finding the thin gold chain with the Virgin Mary pendant my grandmother had given me still there. At least I hadn't been completely robbed. I turned my head slowly, fighting the wave of nausea the movement triggered, and that's when I saw him. Dante Valverde lay beside me, one arm thrown across the space between us, his fingers nearly touching my hip. Even in sleep, he radiated power, the kind that came from never having to ask for anything twice. His chest rose and fell steadily. The sheet pooled at his waist, revealing a torso marked with scars that told stories I didn't want to know. His face, relaxed in sleep, was devastatingly handsome in that dangerous way that made smart women do stupid things. I knew who he was. Everyone in Miami knew Dante Valverde, even if they'd never seen him in person. The Valverde family controlled half the city's underground, their influence stretching from the docks to the penthouses. Drugs, weapons, protection. If it moved through Florida's underbelly, the Valverdes had their hands in it. And Dante, at 32, was their crown prince, groomed from birth to rule an empire built on blood and fear. My hands trembled as I carefully lifted the sheet, checking for evidence of what might have happened. My underwear was still on, black lace that I definitely remembered putting on for the party. Small mercies, but that didn't explain how I'd ended up here, in his bed, wearing his clothes. I started to slide toward the edge of the bed, moving millimeter by millimeter to avoid waking him. My dance training had taught me how to move silently, how to control every muscle, but my body felt foreign and heavy. The room tilted dangerously as I sat up, and I had to grip the edge of the mattress to keep from falling back. "Going somewhere, mi amor?" His voice, rough with sleep and tinged with amusement, sent ice through my veins. I froze, my back still to him, trying to summon the persona that had carried me through countless performances. Layla Morgan, the dancer who could command a stage, who could make 1,000 people hold their breath with a single movement. Not the terrified girl who'd woken up in a monster's bed. "I need to go home," I said, proud when my voice came out steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Thank you for whatever this was, but I have rehearsals today." The bed shifted as he sat up, and I felt the heat of his gaze on my back. "Rehearsals? On the day after your wedding?" That's dedication. The word hit me like a physical blow. I spun around too quickly, sending the room into another nauseating spiral. What did you just say? He was watching me with those dark eyes that missed nothing, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He looked relaxed, comfortable, like waking up next to a confused woman was just another Sunday morning. The sheet had fallen lower, revealing the V of his hips and the gun tattooed over his ribs, a trademark of the Valverde family. Our wedding, he repeated slowly, as if speaking to a child. Last night, after your final performance. You don't remember? I laughed, but it came out high and slightly hysterical. That's not funny. I didn't marry anyone last night. I was at the closing party. I had too much champagne. And then, the memories flickered like a broken film reel. Dancing, laughing. Someone's hand on my waist, leading me through a slow song. And then I went home. No, Carita. He reached for his phone on the nightstand, his movements unhurried. You went with me. The phone screen lit up, and he turned it toward me. A video started playing. Grainy security footage with a timestamp from 3:47 a.m. I watched in growing horror as a woman in a red sequined dress swayed on her feet in what looked like a judge's chambers. The woman was definitely me, though I looked far drunker than I remembered being. Beside me stood Dante, his hand possessively on my lower back, keeping me upright. I watched myself nod enthusiastically at something the judge said, watched myself sign papers with a flourish, watched myself turn and kiss Dante with an abandon that made my cheeks burn. The kiss went on long enough that the judge cleared his throat twice before we broke apart. I wouldn't. But even as I protested, flashes of memory surfaced, his hand extending toward me on the dance floor. The way he'd moved, matching my rhythm perfectly. His voice in my ear. Dance with me, and I'll show you what partnership really means. You were upset, he said, setting the phone aside. Your ex had shown up with his new girlfriend. You were drinking to forget, throwing back champagne like water. I suggested you needed a distraction. Marcus. The memory hit me like a slap. He'd been there, flaunting that blonde yoga instructor he'd left me for 3 months ago. I'd been doing so well, moving on, focusing on my career. But seeing them together, watching him whisper in her ear the way he used to whisper in mine, had shattered my carefully constructed composure. And your idea of a distraction was to marry me? I pressed my palms against my temples, trying to ease the pounding. That makes no sense. People don't just get married because they're upset about their ex. You were quite insistent, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Said you wanted to do something he could never undo. Something that would prove you'd moved on to bigger and better things. Your words, not mine. I searched desperately for memories of making such a declaration, but found only fragments. The burn of tequila, the bass line vibrating through my bones, someone laughing. Was that me? And over it all, the intoxicating presence of the most dangerous man in Miami. Even if I said that, I argued, why would you agree? Men like you don't marry random dancers. You have arrangements, contracts, women who understand your world. He shifted, and suddenly he was closer. Close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his skin. What makes you think you're random, Layla? The way he said my name sent an unwelcome shiver down my spine. There was possession in it, knowledge, as if he'd been saying it long before last night. I don't even know you, I whispered. You knew enough last night. His hand moved to the nightstand again, this time producing a folder. Besides, we have all the time in the world to get acquainted now. He opened the folder, revealing official-looking documents, marriage certificates, contracts. My signature appeared on every page, slightly wobbly but undeniably mine. One document in particular caught my eye, a prenuptial agreement that seemed surprisingly generous. In the event of separation, I would receive a settlement that would set me up for life. "You insisted on the prenup," he said, noticing my focus. "Said you didn't want anyone thinking you were after my money. I found it charming." "This is insane." I pushed the papers away, my mind racing. Marriages can be annulled, especially ones conducted when one party was intoxicated. True. He leaned back against the headboard, completely unbothered by my distress. Though that would be complicated, considering the number of witnesses who saw you enthusiastically consent. Judge Martinez, my lawyer, your friend from the dance company who served as your witness. Carmen was there, I gasped. My best friend from the company, the one who was supposed to keep me from doing stupid things when I drank too much. "She tried to talk you out of it for about 10 minutes, he admitted. "Until you told her that this was the first time in months you'd felt truly alive. That dancing with me made you remember why you loved movement in the first place. Very poetic." She cried. The words rang with enough truth to make my stomach drop. I did remember dancing with him, remembered the way he'd moved like he'd been born to it. The way he'd anticipated every shift of my weight, every spin, every dip. For those moments on the dance floor, I'd felt like I was flying. "One dance doesn't mean I wanted to marry you," I said weakly. "No," he agreed. "But what came after might have." He meant the kiss. I remembered it now, remembered the way time had stopped when his lips met mine, the way my body had responded like it recognized him, like it had been waiting for him. It was the kind of kiss that made people do crazy things, like marry dangerous strangers in the middle of the night. The marble floor was cold beneath my bare feet as I paced the penthouse bathroom, my phone pressed to my ear. Carmen's voice came through tinny and apologetic, confirming my worst fears. "I tried to stop you, Layla, I swear. But you were so determined, and honestly, you looked happier than I'd seen you in months. The way you two moved together." She paused, and I could picture her biting her lip the way she did when she was nervous. It was like watching destiny unfold on that dance floor. "Destiny," I hissed, keeping my voice low. Dante was still in the bedroom, giving me privacy to freshen up, but I didn't trust that he wasn't listening. "Carmen, I married a mobster." "Allegedly," she corrected weakly. "And technically, he's more of a businessman with diverse interests. He has a gun tattooed on his ribs. Lots of people have tattoos, Lay. Remember when you dated that guitarist with the full sleeve? That's not the same thing, and you know it." I caught my reflection in the mirror. Pale skin, tangled hair, eyes wide with panic. I looked exactly like what I was, a woman in way over her head. "I need you to help me figure out how to get out of this." "About that." Carmen's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "There's something you should know. After you left with him last night, some men came around asking questions. They wanted to know where you'd gone, who you'd left with. They didn't look friendly, Lay." My blood ran cold. "What kind of men?" "The kind that make you want to lock your doors and pray. Security threw them out, but they were waiting in the parking lot when I left. I had to call my cousin Rico to escort me home." I sank down onto the edge of the pristine bathtub, my legs suddenly unable to hold me. "Why would anyone be looking for me?" "I don't know, but maybe." She hesitated. "Maybe being married to Dante Valverde isn't the worst thing right now. At least no one will mess with you if they know you're under his protection." The word protection sent an unwelcome shiver through me. Is that what this was? Had I accidentally stumbled into some kind of security arrangement? A knock on the bathroom door made me jump. "Layla, breakfast is ready when you are." Dante's voice was calm, patient, like he had all the time in the world. "I have to go," I whispered to Carmen. "But this isn't over. We're going to figure out how to fix this." "Lay, wait." but I hung up before she could finish, not ready to hear more warnings or worse, more reasons why this marriage might not be the disaster I thought it was. I splashed cold water on my face, finger-combed my hair into something resembling order, and steeled myself for whatever came next. The silk nightgown would have to do for now. My dance costume was nowhere to be found, and I wasn't about to ask for it. When I emerged, Dante was seated at a dining table that could have hosted a state dinner, reading something on a tablet. He'd dressed in dark jeans and a black Henley that did nothing to make him look less dangerous. If anything, the casual clothes just emphasized the coiled power in his movements, the way he commanded space without trying. "Sit," he said without looking up, gesturing to the chair beside him where a plate waited. Eggs, Benedict. Fresh fruit, Cuban coffee that smelled like heaven. My stomach growled traitorously. "I'm not hungry," I lied, remaining standing. He looked up then, those dark eyes scanning my face with an intensity that made me want to fidget. "You performed 6 shows this weekend and drank enough champagne last night to float a yacht. Eat." It wasn't a request. I found myself sitting, partly because my legs were still shaky, and partly because something in his tone brooked no argument. The first bite of eggs made me realize how famished I was, and I ate in silence while he returned to his tablet. "Your building has terrible security," he said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. 3 access points with broken cameras, a night guard who sleeps more than he patrols, and fire escapes that anyone with basic climbing skills could navigate. I set down my fork carefully. "You've been watching my building." "Since 4:17 this morning, when my men escorted your friend Carmen home and noticed the company she'd attracted." He turned the tablet toward me, showing security footage from my apartment building's parking lot. 3 men in dark suits loitered near the entrance, their faces partially obscured, but their intent clear in their posture. They've been there all night, waiting. Waiting for what? For you to come home. He pulled the tablet back, swiping to another image. "This one tried to bribe the day manager for your apartment number. This one has been questioning your neighbors, claiming to be conducting a survey. And this one." He paused on a clear shot of a man with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. "This one works for the Herreras." The name meant nothing to me, but from the way Dante's jaw tightened, it meant something to him. "I don't know any Herreras," I said. "I don't know why anyone would be looking for me. I'm just a dancer. I teach kids classes on weekends and perform at festivals. I don't have enemies." "No," he agreed, setting the tablet aside. "But your ex-boyfriend did." The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. "Marcus, what does he have to do with this? The Marcus who showed up last night with his new girlfriend? The one who worked at the bank downtown until 3 months ago?" Dante's smile was sharp as a blade. "That Marcus was laundering money for the Herrera cartel. When he disappeared, he took something that didn't belong to him. They've been looking for him ever since." The room spun, and not from the hangover. "That's impossible. Marcus was an analyst. He wore terrible ties and got excited about spreadsheets. He wasn't involved with cartels." Men like Marcus are exactly who cartels recruit. Clean records, respectable jobs, access to financial systems. Dante leaned back in his chair, watching me process this information. When he vanished 3 months ago, the Herreras assumed he'd gone into hiding. But last night, he showed his face at a very public event. They must have had people watching. But he left before I did. I saw him go. The yoga instructor had been dragging him toward the exit around midnight, complaining about an early morning class. He left through the main entrance, yes. But you. Dante's expression shifted to something almost admiring. You left through the performer's exit, with me. The Herrera's men followed the wrong trail. Ended up at your apartment instead of wherever Marcus is actually hiding. My hands were shaking again. I pressed them flat against the table, trying to make sense of this nightmare. So they think I know where he is? Or they think you have what he took? He pushed my coffee cup closer to me, a surprisingly gentle gesture. Either way, going home isn't safe for you right now. This is insane, I said for what felt like the 100th time this morning. I dated him for 8 months. He was boring and reliable, and then he cheated on me with someone who could bend into a pretzel. That's it. That's our entire story. Did he ever leave anything at your apartment? Files, drives, anything unusual? I shook my head, then paused. Wait. He had a storage unit key on his keychain. When he picked up his things after we broke up, he couldn't find it. Accused me of hiding it out of spite. Dante's eyes sharpened. Do you still have it? I don't know. Maybe. I haven't exactly done a deep clean since he left. The thought of strangers tearing through my apartment looking for some key made me nauseous. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, feeds my cat when I'm performing, if those men are still there. I've already sent someone to collect your cat, Dante said, pulling out his phone. And Mrs. Chen has been advised to visit her daughter in Coral Gables for a few days. The casual way he'd inserted himself into my life, making decisions without consulting me, should have made me angry. Instead, I felt an unexpected wave of relief that someone was thinking about the details I'd overlooked. Is that what you do? I asked. Take over people's lives? When necessary. He typed something on his phone, then set it aside. The marriage complicates things for the Herreras. You're no longer just Marcus's ex-girlfriend. You're my wife. That carries weight in our world. Our world, as if I'd chosen to be part of it. For how long? I asked quietly. How long do I have to play this role? Until the Herreras find Marcus and get what they want. Or until they understand that you don't have it and never did. He studied me for a moment. Despite what you might think, I don't make a habit of keeping unwilling prisoners. But right now, letting you leave would be signing your death warrant. So I'm trapped. Protected, he corrected. There's a difference. Before I could argue, his phone rang. He answered in rapid Spanish, his expression darkening with each word. When he hung up, the lazy confidence from earlier was gone, replaced by something colder. What happened? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Your apartment. The Herreras grew tired of waiting. He showed me his phone screen, a news alert about a fire in my building. No injuries reported, but the 3rd floor had sustained significant damage. My floor. Everything I owned. My costumes, my photos, my grandmother's jewelry except for the necklace I wore. All gone. I stared at the screen, unable to process the loss. They would have done worse if you'd been there, Dante said quietly. This was a message. To me. To anyone thinking of helping you. But they miscalculated. He stood, moving to the window that overlooked Biscayne Bay. They don't know about last night, about us. When they find out. When they find out what? I joined him at the window, needing to see something beyond these walls, even if it was just water and sky. When they find out, they'll understand that Layla Morgan is off limits, that any action against you is an action against the Valverde family. He turned to face me, and I saw the killer beneath the expensive clothes and careful control. And that's not a war they want to start. The weight of what I'd stumbled into crashed over me. This wasn't just about a drunken mistake anymore. This was about survival in a world I didn't understand, with rules written in blood and alliances that shifted like sand. I need to call my dance company, I said, grasping for something normal. Tell them I won't be at rehearsal. Already done. You've been granted a leave of absence for personal reasons. At my look, he shrugged. My sister owns a significant stake in the Miami Cultural Center. She was happy to arrange it. Of course she does. I laughed, but it came out brittle. Is there anything in this city your family doesn't control? The Herrera's territory in Hialeah, the Russians down in Sunny Isles. The cops, theoretically, though that's more of a gray area. His casual admission of corruption should have shocked me more than it did. But yes, our reach is extensive. It's why you're safer here than anywhere else. I thought about my apartment in flames, about Mrs. Chen being hustled away to safety, about Carmen needing an armed escort just to get home. All because I dated the wrong man and then drunkenly married another one. What happened to him? I asked suddenly. Marcus. Do you know where he is? No, but I will. The certainty in his voice was chilling. The Herreras aren't the only ones who want to talk to him now. 3 days into my imprisonment, I refused to call it protection, no matter how gilded the cage. I found myself standing on the penthouse balcony at sunset, watching the city transform into a glittering jewel below. The ocean breeze carried salt and possibilities, reminding me of all the places I couldn't go. Dante appeared beside me, silent as always. He had an uncanny ability to move without sound, a predator's grace that my dancer's instincts both admired and feared. He handed me a glass of wine, white, perfectly chilled, exactly the kind I liked. Another detail he'd somehow absorbed about me. You're getting predictable, he said, settling against the railing. Every evening at exactly 6:47, you come out here and stare at the city like it might disappear. Maybe I'm hoping it will, I countered, taking a sip. Along with this whole situation. He studied me with those dark eyes that seemed to see too much. Tell me about the first time you danced. The question surprised me. Over the past 3 days, our conversations had been carefully neutral. Arrangements, meals, updates on the Herrera situation. Nothing personal. Why? Because you're going stir-crazy and talking might help. Because I'm curious about the woman who commanded that stage so completely that she made me forget why I was there. Because we're married. And I know nothing about you except that you like your coffee with 1 sugar, and you unconsciously dance when you think no one's watching. I'd been doing that. Dancing. Small movements, a releve while brushing my teeth, port de bras while waiting for the elevator. My body rebelled against stillness, especially when stress coiled through my muscles like a living thing. I was 4, I heard myself say. My mother took me to see a ballet in Houston. We couldn't afford real tickets, but she knew someone who worked backstage. We watched from the wings, and I remember thinking the dancers were magic, the way they defied gravity, told stories without words. I trailed off, embarrassed by the naked longing in my voice. You're from Texas. It wasn't a question. What brought you to Miami? A scholarship to the Miami Conservatory, then the company then. I shrugged. Life. The city gets into your blood. The music. The heat. The way every culture bleeds into the next. I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. Even now? I met his gaze steadily. Especially now. I don't run from problems. No, he agreed. You dance with dangerous men instead. The reference to that night made heat crawl up my neck. I'd been trying not to think about it, about the way we'd moved together like we'd been partners for years instead of strangers. About that, I said, seizing the opening. We need to discuss terms. His eyebrow quirked. Terms? For this arrangement, you say I can't leave because it's not safe. Fine. But I can't live in limbo indefinitely. I have a career, a life, obligations. All of which will still exist when this is resolved. When? I challenged. A week? A month? A year? How long do you expect me to stay here? Wearing clothes someone else chose? Eating meals someone else prepared? Living a life that isn't mine? He was quiet for a moment, sipping his own wine. Red, of course. What do you propose? I'd been thinking about this, planning my argument. First, I need to dance, If I can't go to the studio, then I need space here. A room with proper flooring, mirrors, a bar. My body is my instrument. Without practice, I lose everything I've worked for. Done. What else? His easy agreement threw me off balance. I'd expected negotiation, resistance. I need to communicate with my world, my students, my company. Video calls if I can't see them in person. Supervised but acceptable. Continue. I want to know what's happening. No more vague updates or half-truths. If my life is in danger, I deserve to know from what and why. He turned to face me fully, leaning against the railing with that casual grace that belied the danger he represented. You want transparency? Very well. Let's start with why I was at the festival. The sudden shift made me wary. I assumed you were there for business. In a way. He swirled his wine, watching the liquid catch the dying light. 3 weeks ago, one of my accountants noticed irregularities in our books. Money moving through channels it shouldn't, using pathways that suggested someone with banking expertise. We traced it back to several transactions initiated by Marcus Chen. Your Marcus. Ex-Marcus, I corrected automatically, then froze. Wait, he was stealing from you too? Attempting to. We caught it before significant damage was done, but it raised questions. Why would someone already working for the Herreras risk drawing our attention? Then he disappeared, and the pattern became clear. He was playing both sides. I breathed, understanding dawning. Taking from both families. More than that, he was setting us up to blame each other. The Herreras would think we'd stolen from them. We'd think they'd breached our systems. In the chaos of a war between our families, he'd disappear with enough money to start over anywhere. The scope of Marcus's betrayal hit me anew. The man who'd complained about my irregular hours, who'd wanted me to quit dancing and get a real job, had been orchestrating a scheme that could have started a bloodbath. So you came to the festival looking for him? I came looking for information. His last known location was that event. He'd bought tickets weeks in advance. I thought he might show despite the risk. I didn't expect. He paused, something flickering across his expression too quickly to read. I didn't expect you. I was just background noise, I said, uncomfortable with the intensity of his gaze. Another performer in sequins and stage makeup. No. The word was soft, but certain. You were lightning in a bottle. The way you moved, like the music lived in your bones, like gravity was a suggestion you chose to ignore. I've seen beautiful women dance before, Layla, but I'd never seen someone become the music itself. My traitorous heart skipped at his words. I took a larger sip of wine to cover my reaction. Pretty words don't change the situation. No, they don't. He straightened, back to business. Which brings us to the real negotiation. What do you need to make this bearable? My freedom, I said immediately. What do you need besides the one thing I can't give you? I'd thought about this too during the long hours of captivity. I need purpose. If I'm stuck here, let me teach. Some of my students come from the same neighborhood I grew up in. Dance is their escape, their hope. Set up virtual lessons. Let me continue to make a difference. He considered this. The logistics would be complicated, but not impossible. What else? I want to understand your world. The words surprised me as much as they seemed to surprise him. If I'm trapped in it, I should at least know the rules, the players, the stakes. That's dangerous knowledge, mi amor. Not knowing seems more dangerous. I gestured at my gilded prison. I married the head of a crime family while drunk. My apartment is ash. Men with guns are looking for me. I think we've passed the point of keeping me in the dark for my own good. He studied me for a long moment, and I could almost see him weighing risks and benefits behind those calculating eyes. If I agree to this, there's no going back. Knowledge in my world is currency and liability in equal measure. I understand. Do you? He moved closer, and I caught that scent again. Expensive cologne mixed with something uniquely him, dangerous and intoxicating. Once you know our secrets, you become part of them. Even when this situation with Marcus is resolved, you'll never be just a dancer again. You'll be someone who knows too much. The weight of his words settled over me like a shroud. But the alternative, sitting in this penthouse like a princess in a tower, waiting for rescue that might never come, was worse. Teach me, I said simply. He reached out, fingers ghosting along my jaw, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. You're braver than you should be. Or more foolish. Perhaps both. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I hated how my body responded to his touch, leaning into it despite everything. Very well. Tomorrow we begin your education. But tonight... He pulled back, leaving me oddly bereft. Tonight you dance. He led me back inside, through hallways I was beginning to know too well, to a door I hadn't noticed before. When he opened it, I gasped. The room was perfect, sprung floors, mirrors along one wall, a bar at the correct height. Someone had even installed proper theater lighting and a sound system. It must have been done while I was sleeping, or during one of my long showers where I tried to wash away the feeling of being watched. How did you? I had help. He moved to the sound system, pulling out his phone. Carmen sent over your usual practice playlist. She also sent these. A box in the corner held my practice clothes. Leotards, tights, warm-up gear, point shoes. Not replacements, but my actual things, somehow salvaged or replaced with identical items. The thoughtfulness of it made my throat tight. Thank you, I managed. Don't thank me yet. Music filled the room. Not my usual playlist, but something slower, more sensual. Tango. First, you fulfill a promise. What promise? The one you made 3 nights ago. He extended his hand, and I was transported back to that dance floor, to the moment everything changed. You said if I could keep up with you for one song, you'd dance with me forever. I was drunk, in vino veritas. His hand remained extended, patient, waiting. I could have refused, should have refused. But the music called to my muscles, and the challenge in his eyes spoke to something reckless in my soul. I took his hand. This time, I was sober enough to catalog every detail. The way his hand settled on my back, firm, but not possessive. The way he held me, close enough to lead, far enough to let me breathe. The way he moved with the confidence of formal training. You've had lessons, I accused as he led me through a perfect ocho. My mother insisted, said a man who couldn't dance had no business calling himself Latino. He spun me, caught me, dipped me with practiced ease. But I never understood the point until that night. And now I understand that dancing is like fighting, like negotiating, like making love. It's about reading your partner, anticipating their moves, creating something together that neither could achieve alone. We moved across the floor, and I found myself relaxing into his lead. He was good, better than good. He danced like he did everything else, with controlled power and surprising grace. When the song ended, we stood frozen, breathing hard, closer than we'd started. This doesn't change anything, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. No? His hand was still on my back, thumb tracing small circles that sent shivers down my spine. Then why does it feel like everything has already changed? Before I could answer, before I could think, he kissed me. Not like that night, all champagne and recklessness. This was deliberate, thorough, a claim staked with full knowledge of the consequences. I should have pulled away. Instead, I kissed him back. tasting wine and danger and something that might have been destiny. When we finally broke apart, I was trembling. "Tomorrow," he said roughly, "we discuss terms. Tonight, we remember why we started this dance." He left me there, surrounded by mirrors that reflected a woman I barely recognized. Flushed, alive, caught between wanting to run and wanting to follow. I turned on my practice playlist, trying to lose myself in familiar movements. But every pirouette felt different now, charged with the memory of his hands. The first threat came during my morning coffee, delivered with the same efficiency as the imported pastries and fresh flowers that appeared daily in the penthouse. Dante slid a photograph across the marble breakfast table, his expression carefully neutral. "This was left at the gate this morning." I set down my cup with trembling fingers, staring at the image. Carmen, leaving her apartment, unaware of the telephoto lens capturing her every move. Red circles marked her face, her car, her routine. The message was clear without words. "We can reach those you care about." "She doesn't know anything," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "That won't matter to them if they think she does." Dante pulled the photo back, and I watched him slip it into the jacket he wore despite the Miami heat. "I've assigned protection to her discreetly. She won't know they're there unless needed. More of your men following innocent people. Would you prefer the alternative?" The casual way he discussed surveillance, protection, threat assessment. It was becoming too normal. I'd been in this penthouse for a week now, and the outside world was starting to feel like a dream I'd once had. "There has to be another way," I said, pushing eggs around my plate without appetite. "What if I made a public statement, told everyone I don't have what Marcus took? And you think the Herreras would simply believe you? Take your word that their missing fortune isn't hidden in some safety deposit box only you can access?" He shook his head. "That's not how our world works, mi amor. Words mean nothing. Only actions and consequences matter. Our world." He kept saying that, as if I'd chosen to be part of this shadow realm of violence and vendetta. A knock at the door interrupted my response. Elena entered, Dante's assistant, housekeeper, and probably bodyguard rolled into one terrifyingly efficient package. She whispered something in rapid Spanish that made his jaw tighten. "What now?" I asked, tired of being kept in the dark. "We have a visitor," Dante said, rising. "Someone you should meet. Consider it part of your education." He led me to his office, a room I'd only glimpsed before. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a commanding view of the bay, but my attention was drawn to the woman waiting inside. She was perhaps 50, immaculately dressed in cream Chanel, with the kind of bone structure that aged gracefully. But her eyes, dark like Dante's, held the same predatory awareness. "Mama," Dante said, kissing her cheek. "Thank you for coming." His mother. I straightened instinctively, suddenly aware of my casual sundress and bare feet. "So," she said, studying me with the intensity of a jeweler examining a diamond for flaws. "You're the dancer who married my son." Yes. Layla Morgan. Mrs. Valverde. The name still felt foreign on my tongue. "Isabella," she corrected, though her tone suggested I hadn't earned the right to use her first name. "Sit. We have much to discuss." I looked at Dante, but he'd moved to the window, hands clasped behind his back in a posture I'd learned meant he was thinking, calculating. I sat across from his mother, feeling like a student called before the principal. "My son tells me you were drunk when you married him," Isabella began without preamble. "That you knew nothing of our family, our business, our expectations." "That's correct." "And yet here you are, wearing our name, living under our protection, learning our secrets." She leaned forward, and I caught a whiff of expensive perfume underlaid with steel. "Tell me, Miss Morgan, what makes you worth the war your presence might cause?" "I don't..." The Herreras have already reached out, she continued as if I hadn't spoken. They want you delivered to them for questioning. They believe you have access to what Marcus stole. My son has refused, of course, but refusal has a price in our world. Blood for blood, insult for insult. So I ask again, what makes you worth that price? Mama, Dante warned from his position by the window. No, mijo. She should understand. Isabella's gaze never left mine. 3 of our men were shot last night. Not killed. The Herreras aren't ready for that escalation yet. But wounded. A message. Every day my son keeps you here, the violence will increase. Your presence puts our entire family at risk. The weight of her words crushed against my chest. I'd known there was danger, but hearing it laid out so starkly, knowing people had already been hurt because of me. I never asked for this, I said quietly. No? You didn't ask to date a man who worked in finance? Didn't ignore the signs that he was more than he seemed? Didn't drink yourself into poor judgment and marry into one of Miami's most notorious families? She smiled, but it was sharp as glass. We all make choices, Miss Morgan. Now you must live with yours. That's enough. Dante's voice cut through the tension. He moved from the window to stand beside my chair, not touching, but close enough that I felt the protective gesture. She's here now. She's family now. That's all that matters. Isabella studied her son with interest. Family? Yes. And family requires sacrifice. She stood, smoothing her skirt with manicured hands. There's a way to end this cleanly. The Herreras want what was stolen. We want peace. You, Miss Morgan, are the key to both. I don't have what Marcus took, I repeated for what felt like the 1,000th time. No, but you might have access to it. She pulled out a phone, showing me a screenshot of a bank document. Marcus added you as a signatory to a safety deposit box 3 months before he disappeared. Did you know that? The room spun. What? No, I never signed anything like that. Your signature says otherwise. Forged, most likely, but the bank won't know that. The box can only be opened with 2 keys and biometric verification from an authorized signatory. She tucked the phone away. Guess whose fingerprints are in their system? Mine, I breathed, understanding dawning. He used me as insurance. Precisely. The box likely contains the access codes to the offshore accounts where he hid what he stole. You could walk into that bank tomorrow and retrieve them. Then why hasn't anyone? Because the moment you do, whoever is watching, and everyone is watching, will know. The Herreras have men stationed outside every major bank in the city. We have our own surveillance. The first person to reach you after you exit with those codes wins everything. And I die, I said flatly. Isabella shrugged elegantly. Possibly. Unless you have protection strong enough to deter such an outcome. I understood now why she'd come. This wasn't a social visit or a mother's curiosity about her son's unexpected bride. This was a negotiation. You want me to retrieve the codes and give them to you. I want peace, she corrected. The money itself is secondary. But ending this standoff, removing the threat to our operations, protecting our family, these things have value beyond mere dollars. And if I refuse, then you remain here, a prisoner in all but name, while the violence escalates around you. How many people will be hurt before this ends? Your friend Carmen? The children you teach? My son? She glanced at Dante with something that might have been concern. He's already taking risks for you, making enemies within our own organization who think he's gone soft. How long before someone decides to solve this problem without his permission? The truth of it was a cold weight in my stomach. I was trapped not just by walls, but by consequences. Each decision rippling outward to touch lives I'd never meant to endanger. There's another option, Dante said quietly. We find Marcus ourselves. Make him return what he stole. And how long will that take? Isabella challenged. Weeks? Months? While our businesses suffer and our enemies grow bold? She turned back to me. This ends one of two ways, Miss Morgan. Either you help us resolve this cleanly, or it resolves itself messily. Those are the only choices in our world. Our world. There it was again. I need time to think, I said. Time is a luxury none of us have. But Isabella nodded, moving toward the door. 24 hours. Then we move forward, with or without your cooperation. She left with the same quiet authority she'd entered with, leaving behind the ghost of expensive perfume and hard truths. Your mother is terrifying, I said after a moment of silence. She's practical, Dante corrected, though his expression was troubled. And she's not wrong. This situation is becoming untenable. Then let me go. I'll leave Miami, disappear somewhere the Herreras won't find me. You think there's anywhere in the world beyond their reach? Or mine? He crouched beside my chair, bringing us to eye level. Running isn't an option, Layla. Not anymore. Because I'm your wife? Because you're under my protection. Because despite the danger, despite the complications, He stopped, jaw clenching as if physically holding back words. You what? Instead of answering, he rose and went to his desk, pulling out a leather folder. This arrived this morning as well. I wasn't going to show you yet, but perhaps transparency is better. Inside the folder were photographs. Not threats this time, but surveillance shots of Marcus. Recent ones based on the timestamp. He was entering a hotel in Orlando, looking over his shoulder, clearly nervous. You found him? My people did. He's been moving every few days, paying cash, staying off the grid. But he made a mistake. Used a credit card linked to an old alias. We'll have him within 48 hours. And then? Then he returns what he stole, and this ends. That simply? His smile was dark. Nothing about this is simple. But yes, once we have Marcus, you'll be free to go. The marriage can be annulled, you can return to your life, and this will all be just an unfortunate chapter in your past. The words should have brought relief. Instead, they left an odd emptiness in my chest. That's what you want? For me to leave? What I want. He moved to the window again, that defensive posture I was beginning to recognize. What I want doesn't matter. You didn't choose this. Once you're safe, you should have the freedom to choose your own path. And if I chose to stay? The question hung between us, surprising us both. I hadn't meant to ask it, hadn't even realized I was thinking it, until the words escaped. He turned slowly, something unguarded flickering across his face. Why would you do that? Why indeed? This man was dangerous, his world violent, his life a careful balance of power and paranoia. But he was also the man who'd built me a dance studio overnight, who'd saved my cat and protected my friends, who moved with me on the dance floor like we shared the same heartbeat. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe I'm more like my mother than I thought. Your mother? She fell in love with the wrong man, too. A musician who promised her the world and left her with nothing but me and a broken heart. I stood, needing to move, to put distance between us before I said something irreversible. She used to tell me that the biggest mistakes make the best stories, that safety was the enemy of really living. Your mother sounds like a dangerous woman. She was. Cancer took her 5 years ago, just before my first professional performance. I touched the cross at my throat, the one piece of her I carried always. She would have loved the irony of this. Her careful daughter finally doing something reckless. Is that what I am? Something reckless? I turned to face him, really looking at this man I'd accidentally married. The controlled power, the careful intelligence, the unexpected gentleness he showed in quiet moments. "I don't know what you are, Dante Valverde, but I'm beginning to think I'd like to find out." He crossed the room in 3 strides, catching my face between his hands. "Don't," he said roughly. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. In 2 days you'll be free. You can go back to your stages and your students and your normal life. Don't complicate it with feelings that won't survive in daylight. And if they do, they won't." But his thumb was tracing my cheekbone, and his eyes were saying something different than his words. "They can't. I won't let you sacrifice your life for a drunken mistake." "What if it wasn't a mistake?" I whispered. "What if some part of me, some instinct deeper than thought, recognized something in you that night? What if this is exactly where I'm supposed to be?" He kissed me then, hard and desperate, like he was trying to prove a point. But I kissed him back with equal fervor, and whatever point he was making got lost in the heat between us. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. 24 hours, he said against my lips. "You have 24 hours to decide. Whether you help my mother end this, whether you run the moment you're free, whether you stay. 24 hours to choose your path. And if I choose you?" His hands tightened on my face for a moment before he stepped back, putting necessary distance between us. "Then God help us both." The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor, golden liquid and crystal shards creating a glittering constellation at my feet. I stared at the destruction, my hand still shaped to hold the delicate stem, as Roberto Valverde's words echoed in the sudden silence of the penthouse. "My apologies," Dante's younger brother said smoothly, already signaling for someone to clean the mess. "I didn't mean to startle you. I assumed Dante had told you about the summit." "Summit?" I managed, grateful my voice remained steady despite the tremor in my hands. Roberto smiled, and it was nothing like his brother's rare, careful expressions. This was a shark's grin, all teeth and calculation. "The family meeting, tomorrow night, where you'll be formally presented as Dante's wife to our entire organization." I looked across the room to where Dante stood with 2 other men, deep in discussion over architectural blueprints spread across the dining table. He must have felt my gaze because he glanced up, took in Roberto's proximity and my shocked expression, and excused himself immediately. "Roberto," he said, voice carrying a warning. "What are you doing?" "Just making conversation with my new sister-in-law." Roberto stepped back with exaggerated deference. She seemed unaware of tomorrow's festivities. I thought perhaps her invitation had been overlooked. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I'd been living in this penthouse for 12 days now, long enough to recognize the signs of Dante's controlled anger, the stillness, the way his hands relaxed at his sides in preparation for violence. "Leave," Dante said simply. Roberto's smile widened. "Of course. I'll see you both tomorrow. Mama insists on the blue room at the estate. 8 o'clock. Black tie." He winked at me. "Wear something memorable, cuñada. First impressions are everything in our family." After he left, the silence stretched taut as a wire. The men at the dining table had disappeared with the kind of silent efficiency that spoke of long practice in avoiding family disputes. "A summit?" I finally asked. "Where I'll be presented like some trophy you won." "It's not like that." But Dante's jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the door Roberto had exited through. "Then what is it like? Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like you're planning to parade me in front of your entire criminal organization without bothering to mention it." He moved toward me, stopping when I stepped back, mindful of the broken glass between us. Elena appeared with a broom and dustpan, but Dante waved her away. "The summit was called before you arrived," he explained. "Quarterly meetings to discuss territory, resolve disputes, align strategies. Your presence wasn't planned. But now they know about our marriage." To not present you would be seen as weakness, as if I'm hiding you, or hiding from them. He ran a hand through his hair. A gesture I'd learned meant he was truly agitated. I was trying to find a way around it. Why? Because once you appear at that summit, you're not just my accidental bride anymore. You become part of the Valverde power structure, a potential target, a permanent fixture in this world. His dark eyes met mine across the glittering minefield of broken crystal. I was trying to protect you from that. By lying to me, by buying time. Marcus will be in custody within hours. This could all be over before I have to face your world. I laughed, but it came out bitter. I've been facing your world since the moment I woke up here. Men with guns in the hallway, encrypted phones, conversations that stop when I enter rooms. Did you think I was too stupid to notice? I think you're an innocent who doesn't understand what she stumbled into. He moved carefully around the broken glass, approaching me with the same caution he'd use for a spooked animal. The men and women who'll be at that summit tomorrow, they're not like Roberto. He plays at being dangerous. They are dangerous. They've killed for less than a perceived insult. They've built empires on blood and brutality. And you? I challenged. Are you different from them? Something shifted in his expression, a flash of the darkness he usually kept leashed. No, he said quietly. I'm worse, because I'm better at it. The admission should have terrified me. Instead, I felt an odd sense of relief. Finally, some honesty between us. Then teach me, I said. If I have to walk into that room tomorrow, teach me how to survive it. He studied me for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, a real one that transformed his face. You continue to surprise me, mi amor. I'm a quick learner, and I have a good teacher, apparently. The broken glass crunched under his shoes as he closed the distance between us. This isn't a dance recital, Layla. There's no choreography to memorize, no music to guide you. Just instinct and consequences. Then it's exactly like dance. I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze steadily. Except the stakes are higher, and the costumes are probably more expensive. His hand came up to cup my face, thumb tracing the line of my jaw. You could still run. When Marcus is caught, when this is over, you could disappear. I have contacts in Europe, South America. You could dance in Paris, teach in Buenos Aires. Start fresh where the Valverde name means nothing. Is that what you want? I want you safe, he said roughly. Even if that means safe from me. What if I don't want to be safe? His hand tightened slightly, and I saw the war in his eyes. Between the man who commanded an empire and the one who'd built me a dance studio, between control and desire, between what he should do and what he wanted. Then God help you, he murmured, echoing his words from days before. Because I'm not strong enough to send you away twice. This time when he kissed me, it wasn't desperate or proving a point. It was acclaiming, pure and simple. A line crossed with full knowledge that there was no going back. I melted into him, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer despite the broken glass, despite the danger, despite everything. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless and burning. Tomorrow, he said against my lips, you'll wear the red dress in the closet, the one with the low back. Hair up to show the necklace I'll give you. Emeralds to match your eyes when you're angry. You'll enter on my arm and speak to no one unless I introduce you. You'll smile, but not too much. You'll be beautiful, but not available. You'll be perfect. And if I'm not, then you'll learn why everyone fears the Valverde name. But his eyes were soft, contradicting the harsh words. The summit starts at 8. We'll leave at 7:30. Roberto was wrong about one thing. It's not black tie. It's armor disguised as formal wear. The next 30 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Dante brought in someone to teach me the basic hierarchy of the family organization. Who held which territories, who had blood feuds with whom, who could be trusted, a very short list, and who would smile while planning my demise, a much longer one. Don Castellano controls the ports, the tutor explained, pointing to a complex organizational chart that looked more like a war map. His daughter married into the Russo family, creating an alliance that moves product from South America through Miami to the eastern seaboard. You must acknowledge him first after Dante's mother. He's old guard, traditional. My head spun with names, territories, alliances that shifted like sand. The Valverde family wasn't just a criminal organization. It was a corporation, a government, a way of life with rules as complex as any royal court. What about the woman? I asked, pointing to a photo of an elegant blonde labeled simply V. Why is she separate from the others? The tutor glanced at Dante, who'd been silently observing from across the room. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Valentina Cortez, Dante said, dismissing the tutor with a gesture. She controls the luxury trade, art, jewels, high-end vehicles, anything that requires sophistication rather than brute force. She's beautiful. It wasn't a question. The woman in the photo had the kind of beauty that stopped traffic and started wars. She's also my former fiancé. The words hit like a physical blow. I kept my expression neutral through sheer force of will. Former? A business arrangement that ended 3 years ago. Our families thought a union would strengthen certain supply chains. He moved to stand beside me, studying Valentina's photo with detached interest. She married a Brazilian arms dealer instead. More profitable for everyone. Will she be there tomorrow? Yes. Wonderful. I turned away from the photo, from the sight of the woman Dante had almost married for business. Any other surprises I should know about? Other ex-fiancés? Secret children? Maybe a wife in every port? Layla, he caught my arm as I tried to pass, pulling me against him. Look at me. I did, reluctantly. Valentina was business. Everything before you was business, calculated, negotiated, temporary. His hand came up to cradle my face with surprising gentleness. You were never supposed to be business. No, I agreed. I was supposed to be a drunken mistake. You were supposed to be impossible. He leaned down, resting his forehead against mine. A dancer who made me forget why I was hunting. A woman who looked at me without fear or greed. A complication I couldn't afford and couldn't resist. Sweet talk won't make tomorrow easier. No, but this might. He pulled a velvet box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a necklace that made me gasp. Emeralds dripped like green fire from platinum settings, culminating in a central stone the size of my thumb. Dante, I can't. You can and you will. He moved behind me, gathering my hair to one side as he clasped the necklace around my throat. The stones were cool against my skin, heavy with the weight of what they represented. This belonged to my grandmother, the matriarch who built this family from nothing. She wore it to every summit for 40 years. And now it marks you as mine, protected, untouchable. His fingers traced the line of stones down my throat. Anyone who sees this will know that an offense against you is an offense against the entire Valverde line. I turned in his arms, the emeralds catching the light. It's beautiful and terrifying, like the woman wearing it. He kissed me softly. Tomorrow, remember, you're not asking for their approval. You're claiming your place. You're a Valverde now, whether by accident or design. Own it. The night of the summit arrived too quickly. I stood before the full-length mirror, adjusting the red dress that fit like it had been painted on. It was elegant, but bold. Sophisticated, but sensual. Exactly the kind of armor Dante had described. The emeralds at my throat caught the light with every breath, impossible to ignore. Ready? Dante appeared in the doorway, devastating in a black suit that had been tailored to emphasize every line of his powerful frame. A blood-red pocket square matched my dress, a visual claim that no one would miss. Do I have a choice? Always. He moved behind me, his hands settling on my hips as we both gazed at our reflection. Say the word, and we leave now. Disappear before they even know we're gone. And live looking over our shoulders forever? I shook my head. No. Your mother was right. This ends one way or another. At least this way, I face it on my feet. Like a dancer. Like a Valverde. Something flared in his eyes. Pride, possession, maybe even love. Then let's show them who they're dealing with. The drive to the estate took 40 minutes, winding through parts of Miami I'd never seen. We passed through 3 security checkpoints, each more thorough than the last. By the time we reached the main house, a Mediterranean mansion that could have housed royalty, my nerves were wound tight as piano wire. Remember, Dante murmured as we exited the car, you are my wife, my choice. Anyone who disrespects you disrespects me, and no one has been stupid enough to do that in a very long time. I took his offered arm, grateful for the solid support as we climbed marble steps flanked by men with barely concealed weapons. The massive doors opened before we reached them, revealing a foyer that belonged in a museum. Dante. Isabella Valverde descended the curved staircase like a queen greeting supplicants. Tonight she wore black silk and diamonds, her own emerald ring catching the light as she extended her hand to her son. And Layla. How lovely you look, my dear. The stones suit you. It was as close to approval as I suspected I'd get. I inclined my head, remembering the protocol. Thank you, Isabella. Your home is magnificent. Our home, she corrected smoothly. Your family now, after all. The words held weight beyond their surface meaning. I was being acknowledged, publicly claimed. The men and women gathering in the ballroom beyond would hear of this exchange within minutes. Shall we? Isabella linked her arm through mine, a gesture that surprised everyone, including Dante. I think it's time you met your new family properly. As she led me toward the ballroom, Dante close behind, I caught our reflection in a gilt mirror. 3 figures in formal wear, moving in sync, looking for all the world like we belonged together. Maybe we did. Maybe that's what terrified me most. The gunshot shattered the night like breaking crystal. I felt the bullet pass close enough to stir my hair before Dante's body slammed into mine, driving us both behind the marble fountain in the center of the garden. My red dress tore on the gravel, emeralds pressing cold against my throat as my heart hammered against my ribs. Stay down, Dante commanded, his voice deadly calm despite the chaos erupting around us. Screams from the ballroom, more gunfire, the sound of shattering glass as someone shot out the estate's windows. The summit had been going so well. I'd navigated the introductions, accepted the toasts, even managed cordial conversation with Valentina, who'd assessed me with the kind of cool appraisal one might give an interesting insect. 2 hours of careful diplomacy, of proving I belonged in this glittering, dangerous world. Then, the Herreras had come for their war. Is this about me? I gasped, pressing closer to the fountain's base as another bullet chipped the marble above our heads. Everything is about you now. Dante had his phone out, barking orders in rapid Spanish. His other hand held a gun I hadn't even seen him draw, trained on the shadows beyond the garden lights. They made their choice. No more negotiations. An explosion rocked the east wing of the house, orange flames licking at the windows. In the distance, I could hear sirens, too far away to matter. This deep in Valverde territory, help would come from within, not without. Dante! Roberto's voice, closer than expected. He slid into view, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead, his perfect suit ruined. Mother's secure. The old men made it to the panic room. But Valentina... I don't care about Valentina, Dante cut him off. How many? 12, maybe 15. Professional crew. They're not trying to hold territory. This is an extraction team. Roberto's eyes found mine, and for the first time since I'd met him, there was no mockery in them. They want her. They can't have her. The simple declaration shouldn't have made my heart skip, not with bullets flying and the world burning around us. But the absolute certainty in Dante's voice, the promise of violence to anyone who tried to take me, it was intoxicating in its ferocity. There's a boat at the dock, Roberto continued. If we can reach... No. Dante's refusal was immediate. They'll have the water covered. We go through the house to the garage, the bulletproof Mercedes. That's 50 yards of open ground to the service entrance. Then we make it count. Dante turned to me, his dark eyes intense in the flickering firelight. Layla, listen carefully. When I move, you stay with me. My left side, always. It keeps you away from my gun hand. Don't think, don't hesitate, just move. Can you do that? I nodded, throat too tight for words. This was so far beyond anything my dance training had prepared me for. But the principle was the same. Trust your partner, match their rhythm. Let muscle memory guide you when thought fails. On 3, Dante said. Then to Roberto. Cover us. Roberto's answering grin was all Valverde, sharp and eager for violence. With pleasure. 1. Dante shifted, muscles coiling in preparation. 2. His free hand found mine, squeezing once. 3. We moved. Roberto rose first, laying down covering fire that sent our attackers diving for cover. Dante and I burst from behind the fountain, running in perfect synchronization across the manicured lawn. My heels sank into the grass with each step, so I kicked them off without breaking stride, emeralds bouncing against my chest as we ran. 20 yards, 30, 40. A figure in black emerged from the hedges to our right, weapon raised. Dante's gun spoke twice, and the man crumpled. We kept running. The service entrance loomed ahead, door hanging open, promising safety. We were so close. Down! Dante's weight hit me from behind, driving us both to the ground as automatic weapon fire stitched the air where we'd been standing. I tasted copper as I bit my tongue, felt gravel tear at my palms. But I was alive. The garage is compromised, Roberto called out, now crouched behind a decorative planter. They were waiting. Of course they were. This wasn't some random attack. It was planned, coordinated, professional. They'd known about the summit, about the security protocols, about everything. Which meant... We have a leak, I said, the realization cold in my stomach. Later, Dante growled, hauling me behind a low garden wall. Right now, we survive. More gunfire, closer now. I could hear boots on gravel, shouted commands in accented English. The Herrera's men were closing in, tightening the noose. Mr. Valverde. A new voice, amplified by a megaphone, cut through the chaos. We have no quarrel with your family. Send out the woman, and this ends. You have 60 seconds. Here's my counteroffer, Dante called back, not bothering with amplification. His voice carried anyway, trained by years of command. You have 30 seconds to retreat before I paint this garden with your blood. 29, 28. She has what belongs to us. She belongs to me. The possessive growl in his voice made something primitive in my chest respond. 20, 19. This is bigger than your pride, Valverde. The codes she can access are mine by right of marriage. 15, 14. I pressed against the wall, mind racing. The safety deposit box. the codes Marcus had hidden. Everything came back to that. The linchpin that could end this war or escalate it beyond control. "I'll go," I whispered. Dante's head snapped toward me, eyes blazing. "No. Listen to me. If I go with them, they'll torture you for information you don't have, then kill you anyway." His free hand cupped my face, thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. "That's not happening." 7. Roberto continued the count, having apparently appointed himself timekeeper. 6. "Then what do we do?" I demanded. "Let more people die for codes I can't even access without Marcus." 4, 3. Dante smiled then, sharp and dangerous. "Who says we can't access them?" 2. "What?" 1. The night exploded, not from the Herrera's position but from behind them. New gunfire, disciplined and devastating, cut through their ranks like a scythe. Screams and confusion replaced the coordinated assault of moments before. "Right on time," Dante murmured, pulling me up. "Move. Now." We ran again, but this time toward the main house instead of away. The ballroom windows were shattered, smoke pouring out, but Dante led me through without hesitation. Bodies littered the dance floor, some moving, some not. I tried not to look too closely. Isabella Valverde stood near the grand staircase, still in her diamonds and silk, holding a compact pistol with practiced ease. "The cavalry has arrived," she informed us coolly, "though they've made quite a mess of my garden." "Your garden was overdue for renovation anyway," Dante replied, matching her conversational tone despite the blood on his shirt. Not his, I realized with relief. "Dante." A new voice made us all turn. From the shadows emerged a man I recognized from surveillance photos, Marcus Chen, my ex-boyfriend, the catalyst for all of this chaos. He looked haggard, thinner, with the hollow eyes of someone who'd been running too long. "Hello, Marcus," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "You look terrible." He flinched at my words, gaze dropping to the emeralds at my throat, the torn designer dress, the possessive way Dante's arm curved around my waist. "Layla, I'm sorry. I never meant for you to get involved." "No?" I stepped forward, anger burning through the fear. "You just meant to use my name, my signature, my life as your insurance policy. You meant to leave me as bait while you ran with stolen millions." "I was trying to protect you by marking me as a target." I laughed, but it came out sharp as glass. "By ensuring that every criminal organization in Miami would see me as the key to their missing fortune?" I didn't think. "No," Dante interrupted, voice soft with menace. "You didn't, but now you'll fix it." He gestured, and 2 men appeared to flank Marcus. "You'll access the accounts, return what you stole, clear my wife's name from any involvement." "And then?" Marcus asked, though he clearly didn't want to know the answer. "Then you disappear, permanently. Whether that means a shallow grave or a new identity in Siberia depends entirely on how cooperative you are in the next hour." Marcus paled further, if that was possible, but he nodded, defeated. "I'll need access to a secure terminal, and..." He glanced at me. "And Layla. The failsafe I built requires both our biometrics." "Of course it does." I was too tired to be surprised. "Lead the way." The next hour passed in a blur of passwords, security codes, and digital transfers. Marcus worked with the efficiency of desperation, moving millions with keystrokes while Dante's men watched his every move. I provided fingerprints and retinal scans when needed, feeling like a prop in someone else's story. When it was done, when the accounts were emptied and the stolen funds redistributed according to some complex formula that restored balance to Miami's underworld, Marcus looked at me with something that might have been regret. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, I did love you, in my own way. Your way nearly got me killed, but it didn't." He glanced at Dante, who stood silent sentinel behind me. "Maybe things worked out how they were supposed to. You always were too big for the life I could offer." "Don't," I warned. "Don't try to make this poetic. You used me and ran." "Yes." He accepted the condemnation without protest. "And now I'll run again. Properly this time." Dante made a gesture, and the men escorted Marcus out. I never saw him again. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if he made it to Siberia or found that shallow grave. Most nights, I find I don't care. "It's over," Dante said once we were alone in his study, the sounds of cleanup echoing from the floors below. The Herreras had retreated once their prize proved worthless, their assault force decimated by Dante's reinforcements. The summit had ended in blood and fire, but the Valverde position was stronger than ever. "Is it?" I sank into a leather chair, exhaustion hitting me all at once. "Or is this just how life is now? Gunfights and gardens, diamonds and death." He knelt before me, looking up with those dark eyes that had captivated me from the first dance. "You can still leave. The marriage can be annulled. You were coerced by circumstances, threatened, forced into—" "Stop." I pressed my fingers to his lips, silencing the offer I didn't want to hear. "Do you remember what you told me? That dancing is like fighting, like negotiating, like making love." He nodded against my fingers. "You were right. And tonight, we danced through bullets together. We negotiated with my past and your present. And now—" I leaned forward, replacing my fingers with my lips in a kiss that tasted of smoke and possibility. "Now I want to know what the rest of the dance looks like. Layla, I'm not drunk this time," I continued. "I'm not confused or coerced or caught up in the moment. I'm choosing this. Choosing you, the man who built me a dance studio and held my hand through gunfire, the killer who quotes poetry and the boss who risks wars for accidental wives. This life is dangerous, I know, but so is crossing the street in Miami, so is dating investment bankers with secret criminal careers, so is dancing professionally when one injury could end everything." I cupped his face, feeling the stubble beneath my palms. "At least with you, I know where the danger is coming from." He caught my hands, pressing kisses to each palm. "You're sure?" "No," I admitted. "But I'm sure about you, about us, about the way we move together even when the world is burning." I smiled, feeling lighter despite everything. "Besides, your mother already gave me the family emeralds. Be ashamed to give them back." His laugh was rough with emotion. "She'll be impossible now. She knew before I did that you were going to stay. Mothers always know." He rose, pulling me up and into his arms. "Then we do this properly. A real wedding this time. No drunken Vegas judges, no midnight certificates. The whole family, the whole world watching as I claim you properly. I don't need—" "I do." His voice was fierce, certain. "I need everyone to know that you're not here by accident or arrangement. You're here by choice. My choice. Your choice. Our choice." The possessive declaration should have frightened me. Instead, it felt like coming home. Then yes. Yes to the wedding. Yes to the family. Yes to this beautiful, terrible, impossible life. He kissed me then, deep and claiming, and I melted into it. When we finally broke apart, the estate was quiet around us. The threats had been neutralized, the territories rebalanced, the immediate danger past. "There's something else," Dante said, producing a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside sat a ring that took my breath away. A massive emerald surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum that caught the light like captured stars. "When did you—" the day after you arrived. I told myself it was for show, for the summit. He pulled the ring free, holding it between us like a promise. But I think part of me knew even then. Knew that the dancer who'd chosen me in a moment of drunken clarity was meant to choose me again, in sober certainty. I held out my left hand, watching as he slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, of course. Everything Dante did was precise, measured, perfect. "I love you," I said, the words escaping before I could second-guess them. "God help me, but I love you." "And I love you," he replied, pulling me close. My dancer, my wife, my unexpected salvation. Outside, Miami glittered in the darkness, unaware that its underworld had just shifted, that alliances had been reforged in fire and blood. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, new dances to navigate. But tonight, in the arms of the man I'd accidentally married and deliberately chosen, I was exactly where I belonged. The music between us needed no orchestra, no stage. It lived in our matched breathing, our synchronized heartbeats, our bodies that moved together, like they'd been choreographed by fate itself. The last dance, it turned out, had only been the beginning.